Hi there, welcome back to Supercharged Fridays. I think we're at 124 weeks. I don't know anymore. I've lost track. How are you doing? We have a juicy topic today. We're going to talk about layoffs. Layoffs is juicy, layoffs has stigma to it. Nobody wants to talk about it. There is so much shame about layoffs in 2022. Yes, we're going to get down and dirty and talk about life, what it's like after a layoff. And the two people who are going to talk today about layoffs are not armchair experts. I think this is what it's like, secondhand experience. The two of us who are going to talk about it today, myself and Dan Roth, are people who've experienced layoff pretty intimately ourselves. So we definitely have some things to share with you in terms of what works, what doesn't work. Having said that, do keep in mind these are two sets of opinions. We don't represent everyone. I have to give this disclaimer because there isn't any advice that's very absolute, like don't do this and should, especially the word should, run. I would say run in the opposite direction when you see advice like that. So if you're watching, if I'm live, if everything is working as it should, give me a lovely thumbs up or a heart if you're watching on LinkedIn, and on YouTube, Facebook, a like or something, right? And a little comment saying, "Hi, Sonal. Hi, Dan. How are you doing?" All right, we are live. Thank you for joining, old friends and new, Finland and India. Great to have you here. And without further ado, I'm going to bring in Dan. Dan, welcome to Supercharged Fridays.
Hey everyone. Hey Jack. It's good to see you, my friend, Jack on Wall Street.
Yes.
Uh, Hello from 5 a.m. When you have me up at 5 a.m., you get 5 a.m. dress. So I appreciate everybody being here.
Okay, can we have anybody watching today, guys? Can we please have a round of applause? Please, if you're on LinkedIn particularly. It's 5 a.m. for Dan Roth in California. 5 a.m. So if you're like in your pajamas on the East Coast or you're having dinner in Singapore or India, it's 5 a.m. I mean, how awesome is that? Thank you, Dan, for not just waking up, but also like dressing up and being camera ready, because that's a whole different thing.
Oh, that's the easiest thing for guys. Like I doubt that's the one thing I have to give it. Like I put on a jacket and came on cam. I'm good. Like, there's no polite way for me to say that where somebody isn't going to be like,
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
um,
It is what it is. No, but
I
still I'm going to give credit where it's due. I'm going to say this again and again. It is very early. Uh, identify yourself, LinkedIn user, so we know who you are. Thank you for being here, Virginia, Nigel, Kamaljeet. Lovely. Thank you for joining us. And we're going to have a lovely conversation about all things layoffs. Bring in your questions, bring in your comments. Would love to hear from you. And Dan, for anyone who's watching at home, not familiar with you yet, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure, I'll do my best to keep it brief. First of all, hi everybody. Hi Kenneth, Virginia, everybody else that's going to be tuning in. I First thing I always say when I come on any broadcast is my name's Dan. I'm neurodiverse. That basically means that I do things my own way and I have my own superpowers. So if you see me tick, if you see me move around a lot, that's just who I am as far as my neurodiversity. Uh, right now, there's a lot I could say, but I'll keep it to this. I'm an award-winning recruiter whose job it is to be a disruptor in the industry, and I am also a professional speaker, mentored by the great Jen Buck. So that's a little bit of brief synopsis about me, and I appreciate being here because honestly, Sonal's Supercharge Fridays is something I've wanted to be on for so long. And honestly, I almost had to force myself on. I had to say to Sonal, I really want to be on. So I'm excited to be here, even if she felt bad to actually get me here.
You're always welcome. You know that. We're going to get right into it, Dan. You've been there. I've been there. Not going to say it's a breeze because it's not. Let's talk about the whole life after layoff thing, right? I want to hear from your point of view as a recruiter and anyone else watching. I saw that Jack Kelly's in the audience as well. Jack, feel free to chime in, or anyone else who's done recruiting. Someone gets laid off, right? There's lots of advice out there, good advice, bad advice. Lie on your CV, hide it, be honest. Oh, all sorts of stuff. How do you think organizations view someone who's currently in transition?
So, first, let me acknowledge something. I've probably been laid off more times than I could count. And in every single circumstance, I would say that it was predominantly my fault. Like, I can't make excuses for why. And that's something we could touch on later. Uh, but as far as how companies view it, I think that it's really hard to say because as job seekers, nobody recommends, oh, by the way, tell somebody you were just fired. That's a
Mhm.
great way to start a conversation. So there's a bit of ambiguity to it. And
Hey,
when,
Dan, how are you? Good to meet you. How about you? How are you? I'm good. I'm fired. Like, my name is not Sonal. Like, I'm fired.
okay, so I have to tell you, I had one circumstance, and I'm going to give a bit of privy information here. I had one circumstance where
Mm.
I had somebody come into an interview. And when they were asked a question pertaining to previous employment, they said, oh, I got fired for costing a company millions of dollars because I was lazy and made a mistake a mistake. And I sat there, and this was in a final interview, and I sat there dumbfounded. It's the only time in my career I have had to apologize to the interviewers for putting them through it. So that aside, and I know that's a bucket that you may want to go down. Um, okay, just making sure that my computer was doing something weird.
It's all good.
So
It's all good.
there's no real way to identify whether somebody has been laid off. It's all about where they were coming from. If there's a gap, there's some people, and I'm not going to name names, but there's some people that take chances to go to companies. They realize after a few months it's maybe not the best thing, but then what do they do?
Mm.
Right? So you have this opportunity where you haven't been not working, but do I put that on my resume? And it's a tricky situation. If I'm being blunt and this is the disruptor in me,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think companies should view it negatively. I think that there are times where we have those career transitions. It's part of our nature. And let's just be frank, sometimes we need a career reset and a career break to give us the mental capacity to go on and be our best selves. So strategically, companies may not love it. There's definitely inherent bias that comes to it, but should there be? No.
Yeah. Um, I'm always the pragmatist, right? So the should how things should be, I completely agree with you. The reality is where I want to spend a minute here. What you said is, do companies view it negatively that you're in transition today, even after COVID, even after all of the stuff that's been going on? The answer is
Yeah.
yes.
And I think part of it is that, so I don't know if negative is the right word.
Mhm.
Here's what I would say. When somebody is coming off a career transition, I think inherently the notion is that they're going to require more ramp up time,
Mm.
more
Sure,
learning
sure,
to
sure.
get to that, to get to a point. So because of that, that means that the company ROI is going to be at a longer time frame than somebody that's coming in direct. And
Yes.
I think pragmatically that is one of the big issues, but it's also one of the reasons why companies are creating these return to work programs for people that are coming off maternity and people that are in career transitions. And you're
Yes.
seeing it a lot more right now, especially
Yes.
since the pandemic.
Yes. Lots of reasons, right? Why companies view, like you said, Dan. So let's say there's two candidates. I have two sets of resumes. The first is this person is already working at a company, they're already employed, they were headhunted. The second one, they're between jobs. Now, as a headhunter, right? Headhunters don't, or recruiters, external recruiters don't necessarily like, tell me if you agree with it, don't, recruiters don't necessarily like showing someone who's between jobs because the company tends to say, huh, I could have found this person myself, which is not true, which is not true, right? And the second is, the view is, oh, this person's been unemployed for a while, So they have diminished skill set, which is also not true. In fact, I would argue it's the opposite, because people tend to keep up a lot more when they're in transition. But it is what it is. It's not fun. There's a reason nobody enjoys this. I like what Ken is asking here. So, how do you convince hiring managers about this?
This is
The
something I have to do every
question.
day.
Yes.
Um,
How do you do it? How do you do it? Dan, it's not so much about how you do it, because our audience is not recruiters, but how, tell us like the objections, and how you, like, how it, the conviction, the convincing happens.
I don't necessarily know that it's an objectionable contemplation. I think that the real thing that goes behind it is showing a hiring manager how the person could be of benefit.
Yeah.
So here's the example that I'm going to use, because I really want to speak to the wider audience as a whole. And this is really where my passion is. I state all the time that I think that parents have the hardest job in the world. And I think every parent is a project manager in their own capacity, sometimes an even tougher capacity. So when I'm looking at a situation where somebody is coming off maternity, there's a couple of things that I'm trying to push. I'm pushing, well, this person has been working, this person does have these skills. And coupled with that, I also need the data to back it up. So shout out to our friend Almira, who's a content manager with LinkedIn Learning. So in speaking about LinkedIn Learning, does this person have a history of showing that they've kept up, as you mentioned, throughout? Now, if I could show that we have this person that has kept up with industry standards throughout, who also has been spending this time dedicating to being with their family, then I stand a pretty good case to make for why this person is qualified. People may not agree,
Are you seeing them
but
more? Sorry,
go
to
ahead.
interrupt you. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you
No, I
saying?
was done. I was done.
Okay. Do you see more open mindedness to that?
A good recruiter will create open mindedness.
A good. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. A good recruiter will open up the hiring manager's mind, right? As a candidate, you've got to remember the recruiter doesn't work for you. You don't pay their bills. However,
I
a
disagree.
one sec, one sec. However, in the long term, right, recruiters know that it takes two to tango. So a recruiter who's ensuring both interests will make sure that they're invested long term, in your career. Go ahead, tell me about the disagreement.
So if you actually look at my headline,
Yeah,
it's
I know. It's
yeah,
the
it says
exception.
I am employed by Amazon. I work for my candidates. A truer statement will never come out of my mouth.
Mhm.
I I am a firm believer that the candidates are the priority. And for me to be beneficial to the company, I have to focus on the candidate, because regardless of whether or not that candidate fits my specific job, if I can delve in with that candidate enough to determine that they're a good fit for the company, then regardless of whether it's my role, that's a benefit, because
Yeah.
that's going to provide that time. And that's something people forget.
And Amazon likes that.
I don't care.
Let's just say they don't have a problem. I mean, they don't say anything. That's, for me. That's
Let me put it this
yeah.
way. There is a lot of trust in me in how I operate.
Yeah.
I, I'm the point of contact and the subject matter expert for diversity, equity, inclusion based recruitment within my division.
Yeah.
This is not something that was given to me lightly.
Yeah.
So I do their work. But here's the other key to it. When we look at recruiters, and I'm not going to go into the different types of recruiting,
Yeah.
but hiring managers have a lot on their plate. I
Mm.
take a very, very hands on approach.
Yeah.
So not only am I helping with curating the job description, but I'm also providing advice on what I think is going to constitute a good candidate. And I'm doing the research, and I'm using data backed examples to show the benefit that these are going to be. And when you
Absolutely.
take things off a hiring manager's plate and they know that they could trust you and you build that relationship, it gives you a lot more capability and to get that job done the way that you need to.
Yes, I completely agree with that as well. And as someone who's done lots of hiring in the past, you want to make hiring managers' life easier, not harder. And I'm guessing this is Christine. It is the hiring manager who does the pushback. That's true. And as a recruiter, I've also done lots of education because they don't know what they don't know. Right. So that's a really good point. And hopefully this answers the question, what if the laid off person has more experience and updated knowledge? It's a question of messaging. It's a question of how this comes across, and the transferable skills are real. Like you've got to show that, just like Dan, what you were saying about maternity, etc. And Virginia says, I've just sent off my youngest to college. It does feel like a project. The difference is it's not a 6 month or a 1 year, it's an 18-month project. What
And
am I saying?
24/7.
18 years, right? So I completely agree with that. And there are ways to showcase that. Jack has an interesting comment here. A contrarian take is that a person who is in between jobs is more apt to accept an offer. This sounds heartless, but hiring managers feel like they can get a laid off person for a lower compensation.
He's
Yes.
right, but this is
Yes.
something I fight against.
Me too.
So,
I
so
agree. I
when
agree.
I
But the availability part, I agree with it, and I think it's very attractive when somebody they look capable, but they can join next week.
so do I, but here's the thing. When
Hmm.
I work with my candidates,
Hmm.
and Jack is 100% on point. Jack is a legend. I don't need to brown nose, but he's very good at what he does. Uh, this is why I coach candidates on doing the research.
Yeah.
If anytime somebody's even looking at transitioning, you should be identifying what your value is on the open market for the job and the location that you're in. If you can show, based on data backed examples, that your compensation range should be here and they're trying to lowball you, then you have a case to be made. Now,
Yes.
taking the other side of this, as a job seeker, and I can't speak unequivocally because I understand that there's people that can't afford not to be unemployed. But as a job seeker, I urge, beg, plead with you to stick to knowing your value. It is very, very easy to take a job at a third of the rate that you were in simply because you need an opportunity. It is very, very, very hard at that point to get back to where you were. So if you are able to hold to your guns and you're able to understand your value, and by the way, there's an entire mental health component to this as well, then you're going to be better served in the long run. Now,
Yeah.
personal anecdote, I was forced into this. And the
Hmm.
reason I say that is when I was unemployed during the pandemic, we had childcare. And knowing everybody knows I have twins. So I knew that I couldn't accept a rate less than what I was paying for that healthcare. Otherwise, it was a net zero.
Hmm.
So because of that, I knew I had to be above a certain point.
Hmm.
And that allowed my mindset to shift so that I was only willing to take what I was worth and what I was ready to. Now, here's the thing. I career transitioned during the pandemic. People think that automatically means a reduction in pay. When I got hired, I was making $5,000 more than I was at my previous spot as a regional manager for a global conglomerate.
Yes, and you talked about this 2 weeks ago when you were viewing Supercharged Fridays, and you
Yep.
said I got an increase. It's possible. We're not talking about salary negotiation today, but it's a really great point. And Jack, if you're still watching, we know companies who do that and they squeeze. We know down the road they will lose good people because people talk to each other and they compare salaries over a beer. Come on, everybody does it, and then they find out, well, they're getting shortchanged, and this person is making 100K and they're making 70K, and they have the similar set of experiences and skills in a booming market. It's, for me, it's, that company, like that company is in danger, and then they go back to the recruiter all over again, the whole drama. Not worth it. I know you're saying it's not right. It is what it is. So completely agree. Ajit is asking, how do you convince that you've attended and you've been attended interviews and getting rejected? We're going to talk about that, Ajit. We're going to talk about that. So let's get into this. This is a great segue. According to you, you say you work for candidates, Dan. How does a candidate talk about their current situation? Like you gave this hilarious anecdote. Oh yeah, I was just fired and I was lazy. It was my fault. Not the way, not the
Not
way
the
I
way to
would
do it.
recommend it. But your favorite tips and tricks on things like, I mean, I don't know if we have time to say resume and LinkedIn and interviews, but give us like a summary of your favorite advice that never gets old.
Well, I don't think that one is all that different from
Hmm.
the others.
Hmm.
In all cases, we have to curate that story, right? Like that's what we do when we prepare for interviews. We really have to curate the narrative to fit our needs. I think that this is a very interdependent question. And when we go on interviews, there's this ideology that we're being interviewed and that our only job is to answer questions. A lot of times we need to read the person interviewing us. We need to understand the conversational style that they are having and how forthcoming we can be. We have to develop that relationship and read whether it's warm, whether it's cold, or whether it's on fire. And based on that information, we have the opportunity to curate this. You could also look at company culture. If you've done your due diligence, informational interviews are a great way to understand how you can answer these questions. I'm not gonna name names, but in my office hours last week, one of my favorite people in the world, and we've talked about this, had was transitioning from being a teacher into a customer service manager. And this company reached out to her after she did this amazing thing on LinkedIn and wanted to hire her, but they wanted to hire her for a director level position. What happened was that she jumped in, realized she took a chance, realized that she didn't have the technical prowess, and after a couple of months it was like, okay, well, this just isn't a good fit.
Hmm.
Now in this situation, do you put this on your resume? Do you
Hmm.
talk about this?
Hmm.
My personal opinion is I have no issue with it. I love someone that has a bias for action. It's one of Amazon's leadership principles.
Hmm.
Now, it doesn't matter so much that it didn't work out. It's okay. You took this opportunity, you made the most of it, but now you had the situation where you couldn't elevate yourself to where you are without learning, without going through this. So for me, and again, I'm a disruptor, I'm not the normal voice. I would have no problem hearing about that. There will be companies you have to kind of pause that with and be like, okay, well, now I need to make a determination. But this is where research comes into play. Um, here's what, here's the last thing I'll say on this. And I say this to a lot of job seekers when they're posting on LinkedIn. Some don't like me for it. The worst thing that you can do is to create a situation where you are giving a company a reason not to hire you. So don't shoot yourself in the foot, pardon the expression, in what you're saying. Have it rehearsed a little bit so that, and read it to somebody and talk to somebody else about it to see how they react and get a feeling for how it's coming across. And then depending on how that goes,
Yeah,
you
I
tweak it.
think it's always good to play it a little safe, right? And if we have a little bit of a rebel in us, I'm not saying don't be yourself. I know you're not saying that, but at the end of the day, it's that little bit that dating period, right? Two people are getting to know each other. The real side, I have a messy wardrobe, or I don't stack my CDs, whatever it is. That's not on display yet. I think there's a time and place for everything.
Yeah.
So when it comes to things like, do you want to showcase a place where you worked for a very brief amount of time? It's up to you. Some people say 0 to 3 months, you can avoid it. The thing is, if you're already looking, then it'll be like, oh, what have you been up to for the last 3 months? If you want to show it, you can. It comes down to how comfortable you are. People are watching us from around the world. There is no like this is the way to do it. There is no rule specific for a specific culture, anything like that. It comes down to what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
mean, to your point, in Nigeria and in African countries, it's more, things, something as simple as putting your picture on a resume is considered normal. In different areas of the world, there's different cultural norms that,
absolutely. Same
yeah,
with Europe. It's perfectly normal to have a picture on your resume. In some parts of Europe, it's not. In some parts of Europe, but it's worth it for you to know this and to do your homework. And what you're saying is, when it comes to resume, LinkedIn, let's talk about. Let me just see if we have any quick questions here related to. It's amazing how much project management we've done. Ken, you're absolutely right. Virginia's got a solid point there, and it's about showing those stories,
yeah.
showing those stories in your resume, in your interviews, and also on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is even more like social media, so it's definitely worth it. I'm just going to answer this quickly, Dan, because I want to continue as well. Hi, Arindam. Thank you for joining us. I wanted to know how long should we wait for the HR to reply to us to know the status? I would say give it a. This is a very popular question, Arindam. Give it a week, and if you don't hear back, follow up email. I would say 3 times over 3 weeks is my sweet spot, and it takes anything. If it still doesn't work out, they're ghosting you officially. That's my definition. But who knows what's going on behind the curtains, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add to that is that high level companies or like high tech companies, a lot of the sourcing that's done is outbound. So when somebody submits an application organically, sometimes it does get lost, not because of the person, but because it just hasn't been looked at yet. Uh, I can't even say we in recruiters, we do our best, but things do get missed. So my
Yeah.
point in saying that is you shouldn't always be taking it personally.
No, 100%. In this case, it's after interviews, right? So it does feel like it because you are quite invested in it. So hopefully that helps as well.
Well, that's one of the things I love about Amazon. There's something called a 2 and 5 promise, which means that after phone interviews, we have 2 days to respond. After the final interview, the loop interview, somebody has to know within 5 days. A uh, I did a prep call with a candidate that's going on loop yesterday. And I'm one of those people, the first thing I say to them is I let them know, okay, this is when we're going to be debriefing. You'll get a call this day. Because by doing that, and we've all been in the situation, it takes away the anxiety. They know that
Yes.
this is going to come at this point,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I don't like delaying it. Especially the worst thing is when a company decides with a candidate and they get together on like a Friday, and then the person has to wait until Monday. It drives me nuts. That's the worst weekend of the year for most people.
Yeah, no, I understand. And Risto here says, I guess that many applicants do not hone their narrative. One tool to start that is we've spoken about critical career review. Look at your backstory, right? Get a lot of flesh on the bone stories. I think go back and check out Risto's work. Risto talks a lot about this, and it'll be a huge help to anybody in transition today. Quickly, let's see. Kayadri, if we join a new company and for some reason we don't like the process or environment and we're planning to look for a transition, what would be a convincing reply to get the offer? So we
I'm
just talked
lost in this.
about this to some extent, but Dan, would you like say this in the interview? Like, what would you say? Like, I've only been there 2 months and I'm looking, the language.
Oh, okay. I see what the question is. I was having
Mhm.
a little bit of trouble. I don't necessarily think you even talk about it at that point.
No, no, but the question comes up, right, Dan? So let's say you've been with a company for 2 months or 3 months and you're like, oh, shucks, I'm not enjoying it. And now you're looking for something else. The other place you're looking, they're asking you, so what makes you look for a change, Dan? You've only been there 2, 3 months, right? What do you say?
Yeah, at that point it's tricky. This is again where you have to read the interviewer for there's no good answer. Like there's no perfect answer. I hate doing this, but like you're sometimes it's just feeling out the situation. If all I could tell you is if it were me, and again, I keep saying this, but it's because my opinion is different than most, I would honestly say I took an opportunity and it wasn't the right fit. and I would leave it at that.
But that's what I was going for, and I think there's nothing wrong with it. So Gayatri, you wanna be honest, but not too honest. There's a fine line. So I took on this opportunity. Unfortunately, there was a misalignment in terms of expectations or something like that, right? Keep it generic. The more specific you are, the more you're going to have to backpedal and the more it's going to hurt you. All right. I see other questions. We promised to get to you guys. And I also want to hear about this from you, Dan. So much has been done to that. I think I've been talking about the gold, the green open to work for almost 2 years now. What are your views on it? Not the should, not the ideal, but currently today.
Yeah. So I'm going to take this from two perspectives. One is when I was a job seeker, which is really when the green banner started, and now in the opposite position. When I was job seeking, I chose to have the green open to work banner.
Hmm.
Now, this is personal experience, so I want to preface it with that. What I found was that the reach outs that I got
Yeah.
from having it were primarily like sales, low level roles, and there's nothing wrong with taking those, but they weren't focused on what I was looking to do. So the people that were reaching out were really not necessarily focusing on what my resume dictated, but rather looking at it like, hey, you're looking for anything, here you go. Um, as a recruiter, I don't have any issue one way or the other.
Hmm. Hmm.
It does not provide a negative stance. It does not provide a positive stance. It's one of those things. It's like, okay, it's there.
It's a
Uh,
detail. It's a detail.
yeah,
Nothing more.
I just, it doesn't mean you're more or less qualified than somebody else. Now I'll give everybody some data. A couple months ago, I kept track of my connection requests, and I took note. And one of the things that I took note of was out of, I think, 1,400 connection requests over a month and a half period, how many people had the green open to work? And the answer was something along the lines of 14%. So
Hmm.
and keep in mind that the majority of people that are sending me connection requests are job seekers.
Hmm.
Anybody that had hiring, I removed from the equation so that it wasn't in consideration. And I was actually surprised. I thought it would be higher.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that when the pandemic first started, it was considered more of a positive to have the green open to work. And then over time, it became one of those things where like, okay, well, now we've been through this for a while. Why are you not doing it this way? Why are you expecting people to reach out to you? And the uh, the biases are
Yes.
stinky and rampant.
Yes. It is what it is. Is it perfect? No, it's not. Thank you for that. And speaking of biases, right? Speaking of old, how do we justify ourselves if the interviewing manager is half our age and seems not to welcome older employees for some reason? Not completely apparent, but you can read the line. Yeah, you definitely. Because the thing with ageism is it's invisible. After many years of working, which younger interviewers may not even say, they may not even be alive when you started working, right? They weren't even made, like weren't even around. How do you make ourselves attractive to the interviewer? What's your take on this?
Oh boy. Uh,
I'm gonna see who this. I think it could be Christine. Let's see.
I okay. The reason I'm having trouble with this is because this is one of those situations where I can step into these shoes and just feel myself getting pissed off because we've been there.
Yes. I want you to be pissed off. Just be you. Just say the
I
truth.
wouldn't want to work for the company.
Yeah.
Like
Me
I would
neither.
like okay, so being complete this is a situation where I'd walk out of the interview and turn and like as soon as the cameras are off, I'd go like
Okay, the person who asked is CL. Okay. Hi, CL. Don't know your name, don't know your last name. You're obviously keeping things anonymous and completely respect that. CL, listen, uh, you want to go. This is a very old cliche thing. I'm going to say it. I've said it so many times. I'm going to say it again. You want to go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. You want to go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. It's like, okay, there was a policy, DEI brought this person on. You don't want to work there. You're going to be miserable. There's going to be remorse 3 months down the line, and then you're going to be looking again. It's okay. It's not right for you. I Why do we have to keep changing ourselves to fit the mold? It's exhausting enough to look for a job, right? And we're not ranting here to each other. We've been there. I've been there. I'm 43. I'm
Sorry.
43. I'm 43. But Dan, we'll move on. Let's see. I think there was another question here. Uh, Varsha.
And,
Hey, Varsha. Varsha says Amazon is a veteran hiring camp, particularly hiring champ, particularly in India.
yeah.
So that's very, very good.
And by the way, for
Yes.
anybody listening, when I was growing up, my father was in a court case related to ageism. I know what it's like to be
Yes.
there. Just,
Yes.
it was a situation where really quickly, I think I was in high school and my dad woke my brother and I up and told us to get in the car. We didn't know where we're going. We basically went over to his office and cleaned out his office. Uh, it's a very real thing. Here's the thing. I will say two things. The majority of people that I personally hire are 20 years plus experience.
Mm.
The other thing I would say is with the world working later and later, there is no excuse for ageism anymore. There never has been, but there is absolutely no excuse. Companies are doing everything for the bottom dollar. And while I get that from a fiscal sense, what companies fail to realize is when you staff the right people, when you put the right people in positions to succeed, you're going to get an even higher ROI. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
You will not lose money even if you're paying a little bit more.
Yeah.
Now, the juxtaposition is that everybody needs an opportunity.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. What a scary thing with your dad. Tell me what happened in the end. Quick, quick. Did he win the court case?
Um, that's a longer story that
That's a longer
I
story.
could get into privately, but
Yeah, I
for
understand.
legal reasons,
Sorry,
I don't really
I
want to
didn't
touch it.
mean to. I didn't
No,
mean
no,
to
no,
pry.
you're fine. I just I know your audience, and I just want to make sure I'm not saying anything that my father is going to call me up and be like,
No, please, no, no way. We were talking about follow up earlier, and someone says here, I wish they were quicker today. I will do my application after the interview since it was not a good match. Good for you. Listen, good for you. You'll have other options out there, and it's really not worth it. Kay says, hey, I have a question, Sonal. If the budget is way more than what we expect, and the HR knows your current cost to company, your current salary, what would be the best way to negotiate to reach the budget?
I'm going
Um,
to hand this over to you for this one.
yeah, okay. I have a whole playlist on my YouTube channel about salary negotiation. I have like 7, 8 videos. You can just get in there, get some popcorn, and just watch it till like evening. You'll get so much out of it. And this is one of the questions I answer. And I'm not going to do justice to it by giving you a 1 minute recap. So definitely go watch it and tell me how it goes. I've had a bad experience. Khalid says, I went through interviews and the hiring manager gave me positive feedback, but due to language requirement, oh, that's so sad. From AWS. Ooh. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you went through this. It's unfortunate. There's good recruiters and bad recruiters everywhere, Dan. This is something that should have been checked up front. Um, oh, I actually didn't see that. Did you actually?
Yeah.
I was
Well,
looking
so,
at the comments at the. Oh my god!
hey, Virginia, I'm sure like this is being recorded. I'm sure we'll be able to on playback.
Replay. Oh my god! This is
Um,
the first. This is the
no,
first
so
on
for
Supercharged
context,
Fridays.
Donal, like when I was saying that situation was one
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
would
yeah.
give,
No, this
yeah.
is the
So,
first for Supercharged
um,
Fridays. Okay, I guess.
yeah, I mean, so just to the last person's, I the problem is, and this is the part that's hard
Hmm.
for job seekers, legally we can't often give away feedback, and it's the worst part for a recruiter. The only thing I could tell you in my experience is I will prepare candidates ahead of time in saying, now that you've been through this process, if it doesn't work out, well, I can't give you direct feedback. These are the things that you could look for to see where you may have gone wrong. So, but that's not going to be in every scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure, for sure. And speaking of ageism, Virginia also says a quick look at employee headshots on LinkedIn can tell you a little bit about, provided
Very
they,
little. Like I can't stress this enough. There's 800 plus million people on LinkedIn. However, that does not mean that every single person from that company is
Mm,
going to be there. It doesn't mean everybody's going to have a headshot. To me, the best way to see if a company embraces age, race, gender diversity is through informational interviews, and sometimes doing it when it's not even somebody that's in your job title, but speaking to a random person or a referral.
yeah, for
Uh,
sure, for sure. I think that this is a place to start, right? Most people will be on
yeah,
LinkedIn from that company. Most people will have a profile picture. Having said that, Virginia, very interesting anecdote. I was coming from Paris 2 days ago. I was taking the train from a workshop, and I met a very interesting gentleman who lives in Los Angeles. We were chatting. I was like, "Oh, you're so interesting, your career, and let's connect on LinkedIn." He said, "Oh, for sure, send me a connection request." I found his name. I looked at his profile picture and I looked at him. It hadn't been updated since 2006. So let's just say he looked a little bit different. So that can be one indicator, but it's not like the
um,
only indicator.
yeah. So real quick,
Yeah.
do not ask a recruiter or person in HR what the culture of the company is.
Mm,
That's like, I understand why people do it,
yeah.
but the recruiter in a recruitment seat, we don't sit in the day by day
Yeah.
of those actual roles. If we are providing anything, it's through our experience, but may not be indicative of the
That's a really
reality.
good point. And I think, Dan, instead of it's also nothing to do with, for me, not just the fact that you're a recruiter, you may not be in the day to day. Another good reason for not asking is it's such a broad question. And I find it a very lazy question. If you want to know the answer, don't ask about the culture, ask about how they promote employees. Who are the ones that get rewarded long term? That will tell you a lot more about values, alignment, culture. And there's so many other ways to do that.
You
So,
can also ask about their ERGs and what their ERGs are involved in, the type of outreach, how much community involvement a company has, different things like that.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's great. And Joan says, I've been doing informational interviews for the past 2 weeks. They're so invaluable. Make them 15 minutes, bring a coffee, ask relevant questions. Honestly, there is no downside. Joan, I'm so glad you shared that. Going back to age, right? Oftentimes it's not ageism, Jack says. It's the extra money that experienced people are asking for. Jack, dropping
Yeah, I
truth bombs
touched on
here,
that.
dropping truth bombs here. Companies will go for younger people who'll be cheaper down the road.
So the question right above that I wanted to touch on.
Yes, yes. Just following up on this train of thought before I finish off here.
Yeah.
100% agree, Risto says, but I wonder if they have ever calculated the ROI. Oh gosh, it's a short term thinking. Hey, Anil, if one is highly underpaid in the current organization, how much percentage hike is it wise to ask an interviewee?
Yeah, so this is going to be two different situations. One is if you're interviewing within the same org, and one is if you're interviewing with an outside. If you're interviewing inside your current organization, and I don't know where you're based, so please take this.
Probably, I'm gonna guess it's in India. Anil, if you could
Yeah,
confirm.
but so for the purposes, you're when you're being hired for an internal promotion, there's going to be limitations on how much that they could offer you. So you're almost kind of SOL. If you're looking at an outside organization, you can't, and this is going to suck. Uh, you can't ask over the current rate in the market. I mean, you can, but for you to get the best opportunity to actually hit it, you should really be looking at average comp in your region for that job title and going based off of that. So now that may be a huge jump. I've seen it where people are making 50,000 and the average for the role that they're qualified for is 150.
Yeah,
So there
because
is that opportunity.
they were so low before. They didn't
Yeah,
know that. Yeah.
there is that opportunity, but you can't like just say, okay, I want to make $1 billion gazillion and then ask for it because you think you're worth it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really good. I think that you got to be reasonable, right? That's so cool. I would ask, what happened to the previous employee? I'm filling that position. That also tells you, like, were they pissed off and they ran away, or what's going on? That's a great way to find out about
Yeah, but I
company.
don't think they'd be able to be given that information.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, right? I mean,
Uh,
you've got the US point of view, Dan, but
yeah.
people around the world, not everything is lawsuit. You know what I mean? Sometimes
Yeah.
people do
No, I
share
get it. America
more
sucks. I
honestly.
get it.
It
Uh,
it is a risky LinkedIn user. It is a risky question sometimes. Depends. Read the room, read the company culture, read what's going on, if it's safe or not to ask, hey, Bob is in the house. Hey,
hey,
Bob.
Bob.
So we're going to take this as a last question, and we're going to let Dan go.
Oh,
A
I'm
quick
good.
yeah, but you're so kind. A quick break, 10 seconds. Please give us, if you're watching on LinkedIn, give us lots of applause. It's 5:46 a.m. Dan's been up for over an hour, getting prepped, getting ready for us. So really appreciate it. I know you have small set of twins, and I know you've got a
Oh,
lot going
I'm
on.
flexible. I got time. I made sure, so I am not in any time crunch.
You're very nice. You're very kind. I get such amazing people on Supercharge Fridays. Really.
When
By
you
the
get the
way,
chance to be on live with Sono freaking Ball, like, you don't get the time
you're
quite
so
often.
kind. If you want to, I'm telling the viewer here, if you want to go to, if you're watching us live, once we finish, one thing you can also do is check out Jack Kelly and hashtag Supercharge Fridays on LinkedIn, because Jack was live with me, and so was Bob. So was Bob. And so was Risto. I've had amazing guests here, so I'm very, very lucky. All right. Hey, Bob from Boston, how's it going? Dan, from your experience, what percentage of job candidates show up at an interview unprepared, who have not done their research?
So, first of all, great question.
Mm.
It's my job to prepare them.
Mm.
That's my answer. But I want to take this a step further. So, I work for a global conglomerate. Everybody knows that. And because of that, there's a certain level where people automatically know what they're getting into. Like, I don't work for a small company where there's not a million YouTube videos out there. Uh, I would say, I'm going to turn this around. I would say a lot of people inappropriately apply more than come in underprepared. And what I mean by that is we all like to think the best of ourselves. And I don't disagree. But for a lot of these large companies that have tremendous competition, you want to make sure that you fit what the job description is 85 to 90%.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the preferred qualifications, because preferred is just that, preferred. I'm talking about 85 to 95% of the basic qualifications.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I don't have that hiring for and put those jobs within my profile is because I find that when I do that, I get flooded with
Bombarded. No, I
completely
agree. Dan,
inappropriate.
so let's rewind a little bit. So let's say the question, this is such a good question, and I still want to see how we can address this.
Yeah,
So it is your job to prep them. I get it. That's for later interviews, particularly when you believe in the candidate, right? And you believe that there's a really good fit with Amazon. Now let's see the first time they have reached out and the interview has been scheduled with you. You're the technical recruiter, right?
yeah.
That stage, you don't know them from Adam or Eve. That time, what percentage do you see who show up and they have pretty much no idea what they're looking for, or salary, or job description, anything?
Very little.
Very little.
Now
Okay.
that,
Okay.
again, I'm prefacing that with the company I work for plays a huge role in that. But what I will tell you is and you know this because you're part of it, I have the fastest growing most active group here on LinkedIn. I have worked with over 5 million job seekers in the last 2 years. I can tell you from that context, people come in unwholly prepared, underprepared. Like the gross majority have no idea what they are doing and assuming that they're doing something right instead of doing the research to determine and look at it and being like, okay, these are the people that are successful. What are they doing compared to what I'm doing? And then making shifts. It's one of the reasons that, and I understand this is not always affordable, but it's one of the reasons that not only did I create the group I created, but that I highly recommend people working with coaches and resume writers or following people like Bob frickin' McIntosh, who provide so much information, Jonathan Lee, yourself. There's such a plethora of amazing, amazing information out there. I just don't know that there's any excuses anymore. And for those that are sitting here thinking, well, I don't have the time to go through it, you're talking to somebody that worked 16 to 18 hours a day while including watching twin 1 year olds, including being a husband, including A, B, C, D, and E. I'm not the person that you're going to come to that's going to be like, oh, that's a valid excuse.
Yeah, do not go to Dan and say you don't have time. Oh my gosh, you're gonna get it. Okay, I know I said that was the last question. This is
I
a
told you I have time.
this is a juicy one. All right, we're gonna take this one and then we're gonna wrap up. Why on God's green earth do some job postings ask for every possible knowledge and experience? It looks like they're asking God to apply. You don't do that in Amazon, do you? Like nice to have and must have.
So this is because companies feel like in doing this, they're trying to narrow down their search
Hmm.
inorganically.
Hmm.
So as opposed to having some level of ambiguity that would allow for a wide range,
Hmm.
they're looking for that needle in a haystack and trying to do it that way.
Yeah.
Now, do I agree with it?
Yeah.
I understand it. I don't think it's being opaque by a company. What I do think is that in order, you can't find a needle in a haystack without having somebody looking.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it is what it is, CL. So, my personal recommendation is if you meet 60 to 70% of the not the desirable, so the nice to have, the must have, right?
I,
Requirements, I think you're good.
I actually think that's low
You think that's low?
for the roles that I hire for. I need to see 85 to 90%. And while
Okay.
that may not seem fair,
Technical, to some extent, I do agree, right? Because you
yeah,
do need those languages, etc. So, in general, I would say 60 to
yeah,
80%.
yeah. I mean, I could agree with that. The other thing that I would just quickly mention to everybody, because I want this to be a truly helpful piece of advice. When you're on LinkedIn and you look at your skills section, I do not want to see things that are assumed. So a lot of people will put Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel, and they'll put soft skills. The skills section is there because when recruiters do Boolean searches, and we could post on that, these are the critical elements that come up within those Boolean searches. So when you put something that's assumed, that's taking away an opportunity for you to put a critical piece of information that's relatable to get that job that could help you achieve that. So
Yeah.
as an example, instead of saying that you're a people person or a leader, if you put versed in Lean Six Sigma,
Hmm.
that could be something that could be a differentiator in helping you get that role.
Very good. Very good. Excellent. So I think for something like resume, it's all about show, not tell. And for LinkedIn, don't tell the obvious thing, right? Good people person, good communication skills, particularly the more technical your role is, get specific because that'll help you up in the rankings. When someone is looking for an exact search with a specific sort of keyword, and those are Boolean searches that Dan is talking about. If you don't know what a Boolean search is, don't worry. Just what we want you to take away from what Dan just said is the more specific your skill set. Skills are so highly underrated. That section, please take advantage of it. It's going to help you go up in the rankings. I've talked about this many times before. All right, fantastic, Dan. So we're coming close to the end, and thank you so much for watching, everyone. A quick recap: we talked a lot today about layoffs. If you're not familiar with Dan, please follow Dan on linkedin.com/in the honest recruiter.
I
Love it.
just changed that yesterday based on what your good friend Kevin did. So I was looking
Mm.
at Kevin D. Turner, and by the way, everybody, Kevin D. Turner, if you want to see changes that are upcoming on LinkedIn, please make sure you're following him. But I realized for the first time the other day when I was creating that newsletter that he had Presidente as
Yeah, president.
so. So I think
President.
that I'm like,
Yes.
okay, I have an idea. So I changed it to the name of my newsletter, which is
It's
the
fun.
Honest
You can
Recruiter.
always change it back, but I like it. So Dan Roth, the honest recruiter, he's got a newsletter as well if you want to check it out. So we talked a lot today. We talked about how companies view someone who's without a job today, honest truth. We talked about how can a candidate talk about their current situation, whether it's in LinkedIn job search, particularly in interviews and on resume, the green open to work, for it, against it. We had a fun little debate about that as well. Then I think before we let you go, Dan, what is the one thing you would like? Because if you're watching us on the replay, by the way, please put in hashtag replay so we know you're watching and we can say hello. If you're watching us live, thank you for being here. It's a longish conversation. I'm glad we did this. Dan, what is the one thing, briefly, you want our viewer to take away from today?
Well, first things first, I knew it was a great conversation because I only got through a cup and a half of coffee and I'd prepared to. um, I feel energized talking to you. This is why I appreciate you so much. I'm going to subvert it and go back to what I always end things on, and that's mental health. The job seeking process is a job in and of itself, and we often lose sight of those moments where we need to take a break to really supercharge ourselves, pun intended. So if you are watching and you've been stressed out applying to however many jobs or researching, take an opportunity to take the weekend off. You're going to be better for it on Monday. And if you don't mind me saying so, if you want to join the group that I've been talking about, that
Yes.
Bob's a part of, that Sonal's a part of, please feel free to reach out to me. It's the Job Connection Tuesday Collective. And in fact, every Friday I run office hours on Zoom to answer questions, to give you responses in real time. So at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, I will be on Zoom, and the link is already in the group.
Perfect. So definitely follow Dan on LinkedIn because a lot of information on the job search group is there. If you're watching, then you're feeling alone and feeling sad and lonely because it's been a tough time. Please don't feel like that because you have a choice to change that situation. And it starts with reaching out to people who are going through something similar, right? You're not alone. It's always helpful. You want to go fast, you go alone. You want to go far, you go together, right? That's as the proverb goes. Thank you so much, Dan. This has been so good. And thank you to everyone who's watching us, taking the time out of your busy day to join us live. Really appreciate it. And Dan, this has been amazing. You're awesome as always.
Thank you.
Wish you a great Friday and take care, everybody. Have a good Friday and a good weekend. Bye.